Okay, we are live. Fantastic. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Stephanie Thrower. I cannot wait to get started today. Today, we are going to be talking about systems and why capable founders get stuck. And we've maybe all been there. And I think a lot of people have been thinking about our interview, which you just jumped on, and I was like so excited to actually have an interview because I've been loving interviewing people on Substack Live, and I just am so excited for you being game. And I'll introduce you in a second. Doing that cool podcast like lead up towards who's actually here. But I've been thinking a lot about how so many people say they have to work on their systems, but that is the vaguest concept, right? And it just always is like on our to-do list, but we don't even know what that means. Yeah.
100%.
100%. So I'm Dr. Stephanie Thrower. I'm a psychologist. I am an AI coach, and I help, I teach people how to use AI to create amazing courses and to teach them using AI to make courses that we couldn't even really make without AI. How to actually sell those courses and how to extend our expertise outside of just like the one-to-one work. I am so thrilled to have Nicole it happened, right? Phommanorat, the founder of We Thrive Collective and creator of Soleila. Oh my gosh, see? Both of them.
It's okay.
A calm business operating system for founders who are tired of running their business across 10 tools that don't even talk to each other, which, yeah, we're going to dive deep into that today because I might have that issue. She created the Focused Framework and founded Functional and Feral, a community where founders build systems together, hold each other accountable, and work at the pace their capacity actually allows. You build to iterate, you build for real life, not the version where you were disciplined enough. If you were disciplined enough, you would have your together.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And since this is a live chat, absolutely jump in with questions. Maybe we'll open up some. I'm happy to answer any questions either live in this conversation or come back afterwards if you're watching the replay. Today, we're going to try to define what's like working on our systems actually even means, because that can be quite vague. But before we jump in, I would love to hear the origin story of your business, We Thrive Collective.
Awesome. So I started We Thrive Collective in August of 2023. I spent my career in people systems. I was helping build up different business functions through the HR space, training space, and then talent acquisition space. I spent about 15 years total doing that. My first real job after school, I spent 9 years there. Then I was laid off. Then I ended up getting laid off 3 times in 5 years, which was insane. After that, I took a step back and I was looking at what I really enjoyed throughout my career and what I wanted to do next. And I found that I really enjoyed taking chaos or a hot mess or absolutely nothing and turning it into systems that worked, but also systems that scaled. So I worked pretty heavily in the food processing and then restaurant space, where when you open restaurants or food processing facilities, you have to build for logistics. And you have to be able to make sure that the systems not only work for one person, but they work for everybody who's in the organization. So once I figured out it was the building piece that I really enjoyed, I started interviewing with other companies to figure out like where's my next W-2, and I just found myself interviewing the company and being like, I don't want to work for you. I don't want to work for you either. I don't want to work. I don't want to do this. Like, this is like the same thing I've done the last 6 times I've built these systems. Like, I'm just over it. And I realized that if I was going to be happy, I was going to need to be in a role that I could control. And I wanted to be able to help other people do that too. So I started off helping a couple companies that needed help in the space that I was working in. That turned into candidates trying to figure out how they can find jobs better, executive level candidates. And then that turned into other entrepreneurs asking me, like, how are you doing all of this? And then that's where I started sharing that and then building things out. And I've just ended up here, and that's where it came from.
I love this story so much. I'm such a nerd for career stories, like the actual fullness of the story. And I know there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating too, as you know, because in your past experience, there's so much building large logistics systems. And what does that mean to move into the entrepreneur space, where it's still a lot of details, but it's like less humans, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like such an interesting shift that you've been making. I mean, it sounds like you're doing both still, working in larger systems as well as working with entrepreneurs.
That's true. I do. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. So why is it, what do you think? I'm curious why why you think you're so good in this space of systems, because I think it's actually quite hard for many of us unless we have really been in that training and that's like the field that we know. But I still think like the operational piece is tough. A lot of us don't think that way.
For sure. So I think that the reason why like systems are my thing essentially is because of how my brain works. Like, I'm neurodivergent. I was late diagnosed with ADHD and then autism. I didn't find out till I was like 33 years old and drowning and can't figure out why nothing's working for me. I feel like that is like the female millennials, like, how, like, story. Like, that's just our storyline at this point. There's a lot of people who have gone through that as well, even at this age. But when you have a nonlinear mind and you're working in a linear world, you have these abilities that are shunned sometimes in corporate America. Like, for example, pattern recognition. I'm great at pattern recognition, but when you say something or you speak up in a corporate setting, it's stay in your lane. Okay, yeah, okay, I'll stay in my lane, but this is going to be an issue later. And they don't want to hear about it. Also, I have variable capacity where I'll go through sprints. What motivates me is interest, urgency to get something done because I have a deadline, and do I get a hit of dopamine when I do it? And being able to understand that and harness that was really key for me figuring things out and how I could work with my own capacity to make these systems. And then, of course, like, I have hyper focus, and when I'm interested in something, I learn it very quickly. I can do like a month's worth of work in, a couple days just because it's so fascinating to me. And then I think another part of it is probably the skepticism I have for the status quo. And I think a lot of nonlinear thinkers have that skepticism. Ever since I was little, before I could even remember, I've been the person who wants to pick holes in everything, not because I have like malicious intent to show somebody they're doing something wrong, but because I like to see how things work. I like to see how they fit together. And I like to see how they can get better. And that's always been something that's been really interesting to me, is how to make things better. And by things, it could be anything. It could be a chocolate chip cookie recipe. It could be, somebody's CRM system. Like, I just have this like innate desire to make things better. And that's where the line in my business comes from, that you build to iterate. Like, if you don't build to iterate, you're going to find yourself in trouble, especially when you're somebody who is either neurodivergent or a nonlinear thinker, somebody who's underrepresented where they don't necessarily have the accessibility to certain things that others do, or somebody who's just stretched so thin and so busy. Sometimes in order to make things work, you have to put balls down when you're juggling them. Sometimes you have to put them down to get things done. And if you're always coming from a place where when you pick them back up, you're starting over, you're never going to get where you want to go. So teaching people how to build their systems to be returnable has been something that I found a lot of joy in, because it helps so much when you get that connection. When it makes sense to somebody, it helps so much.
I know you said so many things in there that I have thoughts about, and
I talk a lot.
No, that's the point. That's what we're doing here, But yeah, absolutely. I think many of us women who are like good enough in school, right? Not seen as having maybe some kind of learning thing going on, something different going on with the way that their brain works, how they function in school and in relationships, right? And then being in your 30s and being like, I even being in grad school, and I think I must have been a similar age of yours, I was literally assessing a little boy across me, and we were doing like a full assessment, but we were trying to understand if he had dyslexia, and he was answering all the questions the way I would. And I was like, oh no, like this is like, he was just like magical thinking about a way a word sounded, and I was like, I have dyslexia, and I'm in grad school, and this is ridiculous, right? Yeah. So but it's so important in this space of like how we learn is so key in being entrepreneurs, like understanding how we can, how we're motivated, as you said, and almost positioning sometimes our business that way, right? That novelty is going to be, I think in the space of ADHD, novelty is really critical, right? Of being like, oh, I want to be able to learn new things consistently. I do not want to be doing the same boring thing over and over again, right? And so making sure that your offers are connected to that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that but without systems, where would you be at?
When I look at systems, I think that some people mistake a system for a to-do list, and a system isn't a to-do list. You usually think of things broken down in 3 different ways. You've got a task, which is just a one-off action item. A to-do list is a collection of tasks or a group of, one-off action items you need to do. But when you have a system, that's a framework. It's designed to run regardless of where you are capacity-wise. And if you don't have that piece, what happens is your to-do list is never ending. You're always behind. And that's hard. Like mentally, that's hard on somebody when you're constantly feeling like you're always behind. You're never good enough to be caught up. Like that's just sucks, and it's difficult. And I've been there. But when you have a system, you have that entry to return. You have that that framework that's going to be there and hold you even when you might not have the capacity to do whatever it is that time at that time.
Absolutely. I was just talking to someone who was like, mom of three, which I think being a mom has been such a big story of me being an entrepreneur and like kind of controlling my time, but also competes with all of these functionings, of just like feeling mentally organized. But in addition, like has an awesome business, but feels like at times she sits down, she's like, I have this 1 hour and I literally have no idea what to do during that time. And I have 4 pages of to-do lists, right? And you're like, you probably would say she doesn't have enough systems, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be the systems thing, or, I mean, honestly, I mean, I'm not a therapist or by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, I feel like I've lived through enough hyper independence issues and childhood trauma issues that I can say, like, if somebody's feeling like that, it's probably because they never let themselves rest. And when you don't let yourself rest, rest turns into something that is almost a punishment. It's, I'm letting my body rest right now, but I really should be knocking off this 4-page to-do list. And when you have a system, you build that rest into your life. And it's hard. Like when you go from not having, I guess, a system to figuring out how to run your life, your business, your family to whatever capacity you can, it does feel foreign, and it takes work to be okay with that, like at the end of the day.
I
I mean,
completely agree. Yeah, I think it's not just kind of being connected to the dopamine hits, right? But it's really like, oh, I'm so used to adrenaline or fear or anxiety driving my motivation, right? And so that's, I think, what you talked about, that period of time where you really reflected on what do I actually care about, is so baked into how I work with people, because if we don't have that value system set in place, and also just like your vocational profile, like what do you like doing? What are you actually really not interested in, right? I think that you can be so vulnerable to like everyone else's metrics being the thing that matters, right? And then fear and shame drive your motivation in this way. It's just not sustainable,
yeah,
right? And
100%. The spiral, you return back to it. And even when you think you're cured, it'll creep up on you sometimes.
well, yeah, and a lot of people build businesses to kind of escape those spirals that they experience when someone else was in control, right? But it shows up in our own business so often, right? If we don't actually address it. Yeah. Awesome. So I have like a list of questions, but of course I just keep going off of what you're saying.
Okay.
Um, I think this is probably a good time to start talking about how AI comes into the equation, right? Because I think, as silly as it can sound, people are in such different spaces of understanding AI. And sometimes automation and AI become the same thing, even though they don't have to be at all, right? So yeah, I guess how is it? Well, what I'm always curious for people is, especially who I'm interviewing, I have found AI, like their brains have just run with AI, right? Like as compared to other people, like they are just going with it and flying through and kind of absorbing and building really cool things. So why do you think AI has really clicked for your brain?
I feel like it clicked for me because I've always been fascinated, like I said, on ways to optimize things and ways to make things better. And with AI, you gain the accessibility to so much that you don't necessarily have unless, you're very privileged to have exposure to whatever it is. Like for example, I don't know how to code. I can build you an app though. I can build you a whole AI tool. Do I kind of know how to code because I've had to figure it out because I was interested in it? Yes, but I'm not, a full stack developer or anything like that. But that wasn't accessible to me because I didn't know how to code. And it is accessible now to people. I can teach somebody who coaches artists how to build a landing page out in less than 10 minutes for an offer that they're going to have in the future. That would have taken them thousands of dollars to pay someone else to do it. And then hours and hours and hours and frustration of their time that they didn't necessarily have or want to do. So when you can knock something out like that in 10 minutes, yeah, it's a money saver, but it leaves you time to do other things in your business. So the accessibility piece, I think, has been something I've really enjoyed seeing, and I've also enjoyed providing to other people.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think of a lot of people who, like, there's no way I could be building this business on this podcast, ever met you, if I didn't have access to AI, because there's no way I would have the time for it, because my time is basically like seeing clients, trying to raise 3 children, right? Like trying to, I don't know, breathe. And AI actually allows for me to stay in the game, to start to actually develop like thought leadership. There's no way my voice would be in the picture without AI, which I think about from a representation piece, right? A lot of caregivers, a lot of people who do not just have the access and so much free time can be out there in the world sharing their voice if they have a system in place that can capture it and put it out there, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So where do you think people are getting tripped up when they try to bring AI into their business?
I think a lot of times people don't really know what AI is. And I think that's a huge part of it. And I also think that sometimes there's shame around using AI for a variety of different reasons. I think that a myth that I see a lot is that AI is like this evil villain, like in the background, that's helping these entrepreneurs take over the world and kill the environment. Like, I get it. Like, it's real. It really is a concern. But I don't know that everybody sees it as a tool. I think sometimes people personify it and they think it's just going to come into their business and fix everything. And it's a tool. And I think that is probably something a lot of people don't realize. And it's not just a plug and play, thing. It's not like a VCR or what is it? A DVD player.
The screen goes dark sometimes.
Yeah, I was like, why is it so dark in here?
Yeah, this happened with Auntie, and it was like, what happened? And it just it's just like the screensaver is like, you're not doing anything, and it's like, actually, I'm live. Computer,
yeah, I'm here.
Down.
I forgot what I was saying, but essentially, it's not this evil villain, and it's not this DVD player that you can throw a disc in and then push play, and it's just gonna run your business. Like, you have to build it, and you have to have systems in place for it to work.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have those systems in place, you just are spending money every month on a subscription for something AI that's not helping you.
Yeah. And there's like, I completely agree. I think that there's a lot of space for, I don't know, us feeling more empowered to understand what it is, right? And how it is very complicated to just sit down and be like, okay, what is AI, right? But I feel like the more information, the better sometimes, as long as you're not just like wanting to bow out.
Yeah.
But it really helps you. I agree, along with the systems, if you can kind of get a sense of what this is not, right? And a lot that we have a lot of stories about what it is. And oftentimes it will either become like too much of an expert, like people handing over their expertise to their AI chats or whatever, and being like, oh, it really knows me. And so it's great advice. And I'm like, I don't, it depends on what context it has, right? It depends on the day. It depends on if they're going to re-up the model like the next day, then it might be really crummy.
It depends if you're in the same chat as you were yesterday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting some clarity, but then coupling that with a system, because without a system, in a lot of ways, it kind of you can just constantly be reinventing the wheel. I feel like a lot of people I work with, if they have a different, if they might have a different conversation each week about what project they should do, like what course they should do. Maybe they genuinely have like 5 courses in mind that they want to make because they've been working in the field for 20 years, right? And that's like a business struggle, right? To pick first one thing, right? But they will get such variable answers and it will be so kind of manualized, right? And then in that chat, you just go through the rabbit hole and it's like, yes, this will be your launch plan. It will take 3 weeks. And, it's like you can get stuck in this contract almost that you're making with your chat. Yeah.
And then the shame spiral when your 3 weeks wasn't really 3 weeks. It was like never. Yeah.
Yeah. And there were just no, like, I think what's interesting too is like, we often will just miss the feedback piece about like, oh, it sounds like you only have 100 people on your email. Maybe we should scoop back, right? Or, whatever it is. Yeah. So what do you think? We kind of were talking about this already, but where does AI fall short with the people that you're working with? Or even for you, where does it fall short?
I think you touched on it a little bit with what you were saying just a second ago, with it not necessarily telling you, hey, you only have 100 people on your list. Like maybe we need to build your list before we, do this or do that, or, spend 3 weeks pretending to launch something. Like I 100% agree with you on that. But I think that that's where AI sometimes falls short, because you have LLMs like Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, where you can just open a chat and you can talk to your AI friend, so to speak. And what a lot of people don't get is AI is trained on everything in the world, meaning like every piece of trash you've ever seen on the internet, it's trained on. Every bad bit of advice you've received in a Facebook mom group, it's trained on. Like all of the research papers you've ever read from Harvard Business Review, it's trained on. With that being said, it's going to give you the best average answer. The best average answer. There is a huge, huge, huge gap between your worst answer and your best answer. And it's going to give you the best average answer. Now, the best average answer might not be the best answer. And if you don't realize that and you don't choose your tools accordingly, or you don't train your tools accordingly, you're not going to have the greatest output, and you're not going to be running your business in a way that is going to be conducive to you making money and being able to pay your bills. And that's what I do for the people that I work with is I create tools where their best average answer is really, really good because I've trained it to be skeptical and to spar with you. And if you have an idea that's not the hottest, it says, hey, that idea is not the hottest. Have you thought of this, this, and this? And it goes back and forth with you. So you learn, you being the human, learn other ways to look at whatever it is you're trying to do. And then you use your discernment to figure it out. When you pass that discernment off to your AI friend on Gemini or ChatGPT, you're not gonna have nothing's it's not gonna work for you because it's the best average answer and not what you really need.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're asking for so much of I think as entrepreneurs, we're asking for help in areas where we're not experts often, right? And so in those spaces, it can be tricky. It can also just be almost an imposter syndrome thing, right? To be like, well, I'm not good at copywriting, right? And I actually think there's something valid in being like, you know what? Let's do all the dashes. Like, let's do it, right? Because I need a year's worth of content to see, because I'm so nervous otherwise. And I have this support to do it, right? But like, you got to come back and see what posts work, right? You got to come back and see like what, and start to develop that skill yourself. And so even in areas where we don't have that discernment yet, I think there's like, how do you stay in it to try to start to develop that taste of like, oh, that I did write a good post there, or, whatever it is. Totally. Can we jump into systems now?
Of course.
And not just make them big, cool
Yeah.
concepts, right? And so I liked this idea of thinking when you help someone understand what their systems actually are, or how, like, what does that look like? How do you do that with people?
So are you asking me like how do I diagnose like where their systems failing or where their lack of systems are?
I feel like a lot of people don't even know what that means. Like, what are my systems, right? I guess in some ways I don't have them or I might not have them, right?
Yeah.
But when you're trying to kind of turn on the systems brain for someone to start to see like what are or are not systems in their business, what's that process like for you? You're going in, and it sounds like diagnostic is a big part of that, right?
Yeah. So I ask a lot of questions, obviously. And one thing that I'm a firm believer in is that if you do something more than twice, you need a system for it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing something and you disappear, if that needs to stand up without you there and that task needs to happen, you need a system for that. If you're going to hand somebody else a task to do, because you're not going to do it, you need a system. And what I help my clients do is I help them figure out, what do you have? Like, what does your world actually look like? And we look at, what are you using? Like, are you using Kajabi? Are you using Calendly? Like, what are all of the different pieces of help you've collected over the course of however long you've been doing what you're doing? And how does it work? Like, tell me what you have to do to make this work. And then we find the leaks, and then we figure out, how do we fix the leaks, not blow up the entire house and rebuild it. And sometimes I get on a call with somebody and it's like, you just need to set up your permissions better and it should work. And that's it. They set it up, and they're not, necessarily going to sign up for anything with me, but they know that, hey, it was just this one thing. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of times people are weary that people, like, somebody's just trying to sell them something a lot of times. And sometimes they are. But I think that with when you have a systems issue because you don't have systems, you need to be able to take all of it out, lay it out, and figure out how to put it back together. And back together, like I said, is fixing the leak, not blowing up the house and building a new one. And you might fix the leak, but it's going to leak again later. So you need to build to iterate. You need to build so once you're good with wherever you are right now, you level up your skill set, or you decide you're going to switch to a better system, and you plan for that. And when you plan for that, you can build to your capacity, and everything's figure outable. Like, I will tell anybody that, like, everything is figure outable. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, if you want to get through it, like, you're going to get through it. And I know that sounds super metaphorical for like anything in life, but for your business systems, it's really true. Like, yeah, everybody wants a Cadillac, but you don't always need a Cadillac. Sometimes you're good with a scooter, like, and that's okay. Build to iterate. And when you're ready for a Cadillac, like, level up.
Absolutely. I think we can this is where perfectionism comes in really hardcore. I think with thinking that there is a perfect system, right? And that everything will line up flush perfectly. And that's the sign that it's working, as opposed to the actual flow, right? Like, it's almost like a plumbing metaphor, right? Like, if it's flowing, we're actually maybe in a good space, rather than like, does it look perfect, right? Within the house. And I love this idea, because I do think that people can feel the chaos that's happening, and they feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to blow it up. I've got to burn it down, right? As opposed to, no, some of these things are naturally working for you, right? And I can see why thinking about how people's brains work is also such a key part to the way that you work with people too, because I was thinking about like how, for me, when I'm creating courses, I am the type of person where things have to be broken down, because I kind of like choke if I'm at a deadline, and it's like, and I know that is not everyone's brain type. Like, I had a mentor who, like, she was up at 2 a.m. writing papers that were due like the next morning. And that's the only way she would write them, right? If I did that, I would not turn anything in. It would just be like, I would just choke, right? And so, like, it's kind of this idea of what does your productivity look like, right? So when you're thinking about someone who's wanting to build courses and sell them, trying to extend their thought leadership, make an impact, what kind of systems do you think they probably need to be in place?
I think they need to have a bigger picture of what they really want to do with that course or that system. I've created a handful of courses throughout my last couple years as an entrepreneur. And the reason why I created them was because I wanted it to lead to something bigger. So if you don't know what that something bigger is, you're going to get lost in the sauce, and it's going to be interesting. Another thing I would say to course builders is know who your audience is, and know, obviously, it's kind of cliche at this point, like, know your audience, know their pain points. But I mean, you need to know how they learn and how they digest information, and how long it needs to sit with them, and how much support they're going to need to digest whatever it is that you're telling them. I know for me, when I build out my courses, the first thing I do is I document everything I want to teach. So I want to teach you how to do A, and then I break it down into modules and lessons and all of that. And then you have the information and you write it, but then it comes to how do you support that information getting into that person's mind and then them actually like understanding it. And for me, what I've found that's really helped is I've leaned on other people to help me beta test things or help me look at my course and then tell me like, where did you get stuck and how can I make it better? And when you don't do that, you're doing not only yourself a disservice, but you're doing the people who are going to buy your course a disservice. So being able to get feedback and then realize that feedback is a data point. It's not something to spiral and shame over because you messed something up. Getting that data point and looking at how can I fix this and make it better is huge.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's almost like a system of like that being a part of the building process, right? Is knowing that like, and it's so the word you use, iterative, right? It's unfolding from itself, right? You're getting that next level of, my dog's just started to, she's telling me that it's time to eat. Yeah.
It's always time to eat for my dogs. Like, they're always just
yeah. So that hold on one second, guys. So come here. Yeah. So having that, that being a part of the process and expecting that to be true, right? Yeah. So
there's one more thing about courses I think that are also really important because you just reminded me of it. So I think that sometimes when people get into a space where they're going to make a course or start selling something or start their own business, they get told a lot of stuff that sounds really great and could work for some people, but it doesn't have to work for you. Like one concept that I hear a lot of is you only have to be 2 steps ahead of somebody to like be the, be a coach or whatever. Or I've heard a lot too, sometimes they'll say like, sell it before you build it.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't like to sell things before I build them because I want to make sure that there's that ability to be iterative and over deliver. And part of it, I think, comes from being a former perfectionist. But I think that you really need to make sure you're not just selling before you build it to make $1. Like if you're going to make a course, like actually like do it for the right reasons. Or you're going to put out garbage. I mean, honestly, like you don't want that for your business, especially with like your specific audience, with them being therapists and credentialed people. Like you've worked so hard your entire career to earn that. Don't put out, something, don't put out a bad product because you didn't wait long enough to make sure it was really something that was going to deliver and then over deliver.
Yeah. And I think we're at a point where people who like myself who have busy lives can create, like a lot of friction points have been removed because of AI. It would be very hard to create a course. It would take months, right?
Yeah.
And so some of that, when the brain, like when the course brain is built, right? Then there's like execution pieces that AI can be super helpful in, right? But
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I think, yeah, there isn't enough pushback in our industry. I mean, courses are going to be changed forever with AI anyways, right? I hope they are. Like, I hope that we make more innovative things now because we have AI. But there isn't enough pushback on the sell before you build. Because I think for a lot of us, it asks us to, I'm not a good salesman. Like, I'm not. And so I'm a good salesman probably if I feel really confident in what I built, right? If I haven't built a thing, I feel like I'm selling air. And that's a funky feeling, right? I completely agree that, yeah, that feels very like old school sometimes. Even though it's probably the best, it is sound business advice. You do waste a lot of times building courses. I know I have. But yeah, it's a hard thing to I think you're totally right on that piece, right?
Yeah. And you said something too that I wanted to comment on. You said that there's the ability to use AI speeds it up, and it 100% does. You spent your entire life getting this expertise and these credentials. You didn't spend your whole life figuring out how to build a course. So if somebody like you can come in and say, hey, I can take off this huge burden of having to know the logistics of actually building it, and then you control the expertise. That is where you need to remember that AI is a tool. You, as the expert, need to be involved so the information's correct, it lands right, it makes sense, the right people are consuming it. And I mean, especially in like the therapy space, like it's safe for people.
Right.
So, yeah, you might not know how to build a course, but AI can help you because it's a tool. When you let it do it for you, that's where you run into issues.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that this is a big skill that humans are having to develop fast, which is what is good AI or what is AI, right? Like this idea of, I think we are all getting very good at quickly identifying, well, not all of us, but many of us are getting good at quickly identifying what content is. I think written AI is harder to decipher, but visuals, and I think our brains are so fascinating, they will keep getting good at identifying what is, that's where our pattern recognition is.
Yeah.
So there's something so human about that, of being like, okay, this new thing is here. Now I can detect why that looks weird and not real, right? Yeah, I completely agree. Of how do you kind of stay in your seat of expertise, and how do you do that when you feel really nervous about what you're building, right? Because I think that's like kind of it's a complicated approach, right? It's like, I don't know, as a parent, like I have a lot of ideas, but once I'm in it, things get really hairy quickly, right? And
Yeah.
so how to find that seat of like really the priorities that matter to you. I think the thing that before we get off, I want to talk about marketing systems, because that is, I think, the thing that people probably feel like they have to churn and it just doesn't move, like the plumbing is off, right? So I wonder what your advice is what are your tips for people when they're thinking about setting up some kind of system for them to stay up with their marketing and their selling, I don't know if I should add on selling or just talk about marketing.
I think with marketing, you need to make sure you know who your audience is. A lot of times people think they know who their audience is or their ideal client. I shouldn't say audience, I should say ideal client, because you want to make sure that you're talking to your dream clients, because you want to attract those people to your business. If you're just talking to a general audience, like a lot of people can hear you, but you still aren't going to get the benefit. It's kind of like the idea of like, oh, if I go viral, it's like, that's success, but you didn't make any money. So how's that success? Like you need to talk to your ideal client. And when you don't know who that is and you don't know what their pain points are, but also like what good things they like or where they hang out, marketing gets a whole lot harder. And it's really easy to go, put a bunch of stuff in a chat GBT and come up with this awesome marketing plan and this awesome ad and then lose a bunch of money. Like it's really easy to do that and then blame AI. But it's also really easy because that's what people are telling you what to do. Like I just went to social media marketing world and everybody's talking about, build your CMO AI agent and build your copywriting agent and your this agent and that agent and AI is amazing and you're going to not have to do all this stuff. And yeah, it might get a little bit easier, but if you're not picking the right systems to use, the right tools to use for what you're trying to do, and you're not talking to who you actually want to work with, it's so much harder. And it sounds like it's common sense, like, oh, only talk to the people you want to sell to. But it's really not common sense.
Well, I think hard. Yeah, and I think sometimes I can be so much more in the psychology of who I'm already working with versus someone who I might, or what it was like before they came to work with me, right? And what it was like those early times of being like, maybe, I think that is a place where we can stay. But I also think there's a confidence piece too, to kind of owning who we want to be working with or what our services or offers are for people. So yeah, and it can, but I also think there's this way we can create these agents that you're right, like it feels very popular right now. And I think for me, actually having done these interviews, I find marketing has a wheel to it that doesn't take so much effort for me to drive, right? And so finding a system for you, right, that keeps you actually naturally engaged in the process feels really important to the marketing piece. I don't know if that's something you find for your people or yourself.
Yeah. I mean, if you talk to any guru who's amazing at marketing, they're going to tell you a different thing. Austin Armstrong posts like 5,000 times a day. I don't have the capacity to post 5,000 times a day. Maybe it's more like 100 times a day, but still, I don't have the capacity for that. I don't even like posting every day. And that's okay because I know what my capacity is. And you need to figure that out because at some point, you're either not going to do it because it's easier to put it on your to-do list and put it onto the back, just keep kicking it to the back of the burner, or you're going to end up, not talking to the right person. So being able to do that is huge when you work to your capacity. And my screen just went off again. So if I was just like looking all over the place, that's why. But you need to look at it based off what you can actually do, not what you're doing in like this fantasy world where everything's perfect, because it's not. Like life is going to happen and you still need to be able to like market your business. So build your plan to your capacity.
Yeah, that was like I did a recent, I think I was in a coaching call where she had us pull up the calendar and I got really real on how little time I had for things. And it was, I don't know, it was such an obvious, silly miss that I hadn't done before, where I was like, oh yeah, of course I have 3 hours to do this thing. It's like, I probably have 3 minutes to do it. Yeah. Well, this has been so awesome. I feel like I could talk to you a lot more, but I know we are having people watch this, which I feel so excited. Yeah. So let me know, or let us know what you're offering. Cause I know you have a workshop. Is it a workshop? Is it called?
I do. Mm-hmm. I have 2 workshops coming up. One is on the 28th, which is on Thursday this week, May 28th. And I have another one June 11th that is to help people set up Claude. A lot of times we're hearing about Claude right now, and they get on Claude, they're like, this is just like ChatGPT. It's because you don't have it set up right. So I get you the basics. You're going to leave with like 7 different skills or tools you can use. You're going to know what a project is. You're going to know what artifacts are, like all those crazy words that you're like, I have no idea what that is. You're going to know all of that by the end of the webinar or workshop rather. And then I also have the Functioning and Feral community, which is a community where I provide not only AI tools and agents that help you with your copywriting and your marketing stuff and your strategy, all built from like really great knowledge bases. I also provide like 8 different touch points a month where you can check in for accountability, tech help, content creation help. So 8 different times of the month, you're able to get on to a Zoom call with a real person and be like, this is hard. How do I fix this? And that's available too. So that's it. That's the Functioning and Feral Hub in the workshop.
Awesome. And we will put your other content, we'll put links for this and where people can find you in the show notes. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. This was awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. I had a lot of fun being interviewed.
Good. I'm glad that my dogs were not too much involved. I don't think they can join us in the lives the next time.
Aww.
I know. I mean, I don't think they will be too sad, so it'll be fine. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. And hopefully I can have you on again and we can dive into systems even more. Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.